On a nice sunny summer afternoon, I start this live stream all over again. Welcome to drama-free true crime destination. Welcome to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. It's so good to have everybody in the house on a Sunday evening. First of all, let me apologize to everybody. Yesterday, I attempted to do this live stream, and due to some technical difficulties, my computer had shut down. Everything just went kaput. So I just said, I'll just go ahead. I'll start this all over again from the top, and I would do this tonight. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. We got a loaded lineup. So what we're going to do right here is start off with our missing persons report. All right, everybody, let's get a good look at it. This is Estefany Rodriguez. She's missing out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Last seen on June 14th, 2024. She's 13 years of age at the time of her disappearance. She stood about 5 feet tall. 5'2", weighed around 130 pounds. Let me zoom in here so you can see the information as I am. This is a disturbing situation. While traveling to the beach with her family from Arkansas, they stopped in Oklahoma City for the night at her second home, which she hadn't visited in 5 months. She was seen on an interior camera at 3:15 in the morning, attempting to charge her phone. There is no footage of her leaving the house. She was wearing red and black plaid pajama bottoms, and a t-shirt. Her shoes, phone, and belongings were left behind at the house located near Southwest 44th Street and South May Avenue. Oklahoma City, this is very serious and one that the community should take seriously. So they're asking you if you know where Estefany Rodriguez is, or you have any information regarding her whereabouts, please do not hesitate. You're asked to call the Oklahoma City Police Department at area code 405-297-1129. 405-297-1129. Or, as always, you can call 911. Or you can even submit your tip anonymously through the FBI. That address is tips.fbi.gov. Any information you give will bring you much closer to bringing Estefany home safe. And as always, if you see something, say something. That way we can do something. All right. Let's go ahead and let's get going. We have an arrest in the Rachel Morin murder case. Alright. Yep. The suspect has been arrested. We're going to take you to Court TV's Julie Grant for a nice double shot. She's going to report on his arrest, and then we're going to follow that up with her opening statement regarding that arrest.
We begin with the huge development in the Rachel Morin murder case. After 10 months, an arrest finally made. Now, we want to show you the suspect. This is 23-year-old Victor Martinez Hernandez. Police say he illegally crossed the border in February of 2023, fleeing from a crime they say he committed in El Salvador. They say he killed a woman there. And Morin was reported missing last August by her boyfriend, who said that she never returned home after she went out for a run on the Ma and Pa Trail just outside of Baltimore. Rachel's body was found on that trail the very next day, and authorities say it was DNA that broke the case wide open.
The lead we received was related to DNA evidence and allowed investigators to finally put a name to the image of the suspect in the video from Los Angeles, which we released 2 weeks after Rachel's death. After we had the video, we knew what he looked like. We knew what he looked like, but we didn't know who he was. With the new DNA evidence, now we know who he is, but we still didn't know where he was.
Now, once they had the DNA sample, remember, they had the sample in Maryland, they had the sample in California. These two samples matched. They put it in the CODIS system. And so here's what they did. In order to do the genealogical DNA trackdown, they actually traveled all the way to El Salvador, to this guy's native country, to find people he was potentially related to. And we don't know the exact way that they found this guy. They wouldn't say, and that's fine. You know what? Because you know what matters is they found him, right? They say they found the guy that murdered Rachel and did the home invasion, assaulting that 9-year-old and her mom in California. Now, prosecutions are up next for this guy. Let's bring in our guests and talk more about what is coming. Want to welcome them in now. Retired criminal defense attorney Kirk Nurmi is with us, and retired police lieutenant Mike Gold. Great to see you both this morning. Let's start with the trackdown. I couldn't have been more impressed with what police did here. Lieutenant Gold, talk to us here. Your thoughts, please.
Sure. Good morning, Julie. Yeah, so obviously a great day for law enforcement. We need all these wins we can get when we have dedicated people really committed to this case. I find it, you used the right words, scumbag, dirtbag. All of these things are appropriate for the alleged killer. You know, here's the funny thing.
We know who he is, but we still didn't know where he was.
Now, once they had the DNA sample, remember, they had the sample in Maryland, they had the sample in California. These two samples matched. They put it in the CODIS system. And so here's what they did. In order to do the genealogical DNA trackdown, they actually traveled all the way to El Salvador, to this guy's native country, to find people he was potentially related to. And we don't know the exact way that they found this guy. They wouldn't say, and that's fine. You know what? Because you know what matters is they found him, right? They say they found the guy that murdered Rachel and did the home invasion, assaulting that 9-year-old and her mom in California. Now, prosecutions are up next for this guy. Let's bring in our guests and talk more about what is coming. Want to welcome them in now. Retired criminal defense attorney Kirk Nurmi is with us, and retired police lieutenant Mike Gold. Great to see you both this morning. Let's start with the trackdown. I couldn't have been more impressed with what police did here. Lieutenant Gold, talk to us here. Your thoughts, please.
Sure. Good morning, Julie. Yeah, so obviously a great day for law enforcement. We need all these wins we can get when we have dedicated people really committed to this case. I find it, you used the right words, scumbag, dirtbag. All of these things are appropriate for the alleged killer. You know, here's the funny thing. I just came back from Bogota last weekend. I flew into Bogota and flew back to Orlando. I was online for about an hour and a half. I was interrogated, basically, and I understand Border Patrol. This is what they do. Where was I? What hotel did I stay at? Where's my passport? Who are you visiting? How much money you got? And as I'm standing on this line for 45 minutes, it kind of dawned on me that there is no line at the Mexican border. And it was really, a light bulb went off for me, because I was, you're getting interrogated by a border. You get, what did you bring? What do you have in your bag? Did you purchase anything? So that was my moment, realizing what's happening in our country today.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you sharing that personal story, Lieutenant, because, I mean, law enforcement said this guy's MO is violence. That's what they said. That's what this guy is all about. He was about that in his native country and then didn't come to America to have a better life. They say he didn't come here to try to do good. No, they say he came here to try to commit more crimes. Picked up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They tracked him down. He was at a bar apparently on Friday night when they grabbed him up. It was beautiful. Let's listen to a clip from the press conference now.
This killer could have been laying his head in any community in the country or even in the world, and indeed, that was completely accurate. Over the past 2 weeks, investigators continued their diligent investigation and tracked our suspect all the way from Prince George's County to Tulsa.
And they picked him up apparently at a local bar there. And so it makes you wonder, what was he up to in Tulsa? Will there be any more alleged crimes announced here? Kirk Nurmi, tapping into your legal expertise here. Would you tell us how you expect this picture to look with this guy legally? We know that Maryland is the next stop. What are your thoughts? Will he be sent back to California after that? Do you think he's just going to be deported back to El Salvador after he gets to Maryland?
Yeah, no, I don't think deportation, right away is probably what's going to happen. My experience in Arizona would be that they are going to be tried for any and all crimes that they can be linked to in the United States. So it's not this kind of idea that somebody just gets deported back. That's not generally the way it works. And of course, it shouldn't work that way, because really what his legal status is and what have you probably doesn't matter much to the Morin family, because they've still lost their loved one and they still deserve justice in that regard. So I think that's the first case we're going to see. And given that we have this DNA and given this man's propensity for violent activity, I suspect that is going to be looked at, put into databases, and see if this man has been guilty of committing any more crimes in the United States.
Kirk, thank you for all of that. You mentioned Rachel's family, and you're right. I mean, they have been through a living nightmare. Nothing can bring their loved one back. And Rachel's mom had a couple big moments at the press conference. I touched on one in my opening statement where she called for that round of applause for law enforcement. And then there was another moment where she talked about how she was in a headspace where everything was looking hopeless. Just hopeless. No answers, radio silence. And she told everyone what the detective said to her, and it really stuck. Let's watch.
At one point, when things seemed like really bleak and hopeless, the lead detective said to me, he said, "Patience will win in the end." And that's what they've been doing. They've been diligently working very hard, and they've been patiently working through all the leads. And it's because of that that we have an arrest today.
Lieutenant Mike, how many times in your career have you seen that happen?
Yeah, so patience is a virtue, but of course that's easier said than done when your family member is a victim of a crime. And then of course we see cases go cold for several years. So it's, look, this wasn't this guy's first rodeo. This wasn't just a spontaneous, this wasn't a robbery. It seems to me he was stalking this person maybe for several days on this walking path. So yeah, he's a predator, and this will not be his first crime. As Kirk said, once this DNA is revealed, then they can start looking at the DNA of other victims wherever this character has been floating around. And I think there'll be several more cases closed due to the hard work of these investigators.
Excellent points from you both. We'll leave it there for now. As soon as we get word that he is on his way, let's say, to Maryland, and the process has begun. We know that it was already, being commenced by the DA, who was at that press conference on Saturday when this news was announced, and so we'll report it certainly when he's making his way to Maryland to begin the prosecution there.
And most certainly, Bethea'S Byte Reloaded will be covering that as well. But we're not totally finished with this just yet. Julie Grant, as she mentioned in this report, made her opening statement in regard to the arrest of Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, and I am going to get you all set up here right now for that opening statement. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we go with Julie's opening statement regarding the arrest of Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, and the kudos she gives to law enforcement in that aspect.
Of applause for the men and women in law enforcement who worked tirelessly for 10 months to find Rachel Morin's killer. A round of applause is literally what Rachel's mom, Patricia, called for at the press conference announcing the arrest of the man who allegedly murdered her daughter, Rachel. Patricia told everybody that she wants people to understand that the countless hours of dedication that went into finding the person who took her beautiful angel away need to be recognized. Patricia and all of Rachel's family and loved ones have been living a nightmare since August 5th of 2023. Rachel Morin was so many things to so many people. She was a mom to 5 kids. And in those intense months of waiting, Rachel's family stayed patient and hopeful, and it paid off. From what police have said, a very dangerous man is now off the streets. 23-year-old Victor Martinez Hernandez is behind bars this morning, waking up in Oklahoma. He's going to be extradited to Maryland next to be prosecuted for Rachel's murder. And what's more, this violent scumbag was in the United States illegally. Police say after he murdered a young woman in El Salvador, he crossed our border illegally in February of 2023. Detectives said he went on to brutally then assault a 9-year-old girl and her mother in California by invading their home to do it. And then police say he traveled to Bel Air, Maryland, and that's where they say he attacked Rachel Morin. He should have never been here. That's what really boils my blood. Thank goodness the dirtbag has now been captured and he won't be able to hurt anyone else, like police say he already hurt Rachel, the 9-year-old girl, and her mother in LA, and that young woman in El Salvador that officials say that he murdered. May we keep these families in our hearts and in our prayers as they go through the next steps of the prosecutions. It is a long road ahead for them. And what happened should never have happened. But the suspect's arrest is a major step toward justice for the victims and a win for all of the good men and women in blue.
A major win indeed. Now, like Julie said, the next step will be the extradition process to Maryland, and who knows? Maybe this will keep going until he'll have nowhere else to run. Maybe they'll extradite him right back to El Salvador, and still he has to face those charges. We'll see what happens then. Right now, we're gonna keep on rolling along, And Rory Atwood has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder, with first-degree homicide. Ooh, no. For the murder of an entire family. Yeah. Court documents reveal a Florida homicide suspect told deputies he threw 4 family members into a fire pit on his property in Hudson. It's in Florida. The Pasco County Sheriff's Office has been searching for 26-year-old Ray Mancini, 25-year-old Philip Zillett II, and their children, 6-year-old Karma Zillett and Philip Zillett III, who was age 5. Neither of them haven't been seen since last Wednesday. New court documents were released on last Monday after deputies arrested 25-year-old Rory Atwood for first-degree homicide. The affidavit stated that deputies received a call for a welfare check on June 13th. Deputies arrived on the scene and spoke to Atwood. A quick search did not reveal anything suspicious. A friend of Rory, this being around 2 in the morning, got a call from Rory who was really upset and said he shot somebody and was frantic, said Sheriff Chris Nocco. The affidavit stated Atwood called a friend and requested help burning trash. The friend noticed a puddle of blood and could see adult and child bodies over the video phone call, according to court documents. Detectives returned to the home on Nottingham Trail in Hudson on June 14. Pasco County Sheriff's Office cadaver dog removed items from a burn pit that appear to be small skeletal remains, according to court documents. He gives us permission to go back on the property. We start doing a more extensive search. We have the human remain dogs, bloodhounds, aviation deputies. Because of this search, we were able to find human remains, Sheriff Nocco said. Records stated Atwood evicted the family on June 1st for failure to pay rent. Records said days later there was an altercation involving a firearm and a knife. Court records indicated that Rain and Phillips suffered gunshot wounds, but do not indicate how the children died. Until the ME comes back, it's still a missing persons case. We were able to find human remains at the crime scene, and we may believe it may be the family, Sheriff Nocco has said. Atwood first denied killing the family or burning their bodies. He eventually admitted the bodies of all 4 family members were located in the fire pit on his property. Court records also stated the firearm was tossed into the fire, and the suspect also discarded a couch from his living room into the fire pit. Atwood remains in the Pasco County Jail. This is the kind of case you not only do you shake your head in frustration because of what had happened, but you also want to see justice done for that entire family. I mean, also, you've already evicted the family for failure to pay rent. Let them go. That's the smart thing to do, right? Leave them alone. They can't pay the rent, let them go. Anyway, I'll keep you posted when it comes to this case as well. Next up. Next up is a woman I've added to my most hated moms list, and trust me, I've got a number of them. I'm gonna go to Michael Ayala for a brief update on Bionca.
First, a trial date has been set for the Ohio woman accused of stabbing a child to death in a grocery store parking lot. Bionca Ellis is charged in the murder of 3-year-old Julian Wood, who died after being stabbed in the parking lot of a Giant Eagle grocery store in North Olmsted. At a pretrial hearing held today, Ellis's trial was scheduled for December 9th. Authorities believe the attack was random.
Okay, good. So, she has a court date set for December 9th. That's great. That's fantastic. But what got me? What still tears my guts in two about her is that she had the audacity to stand up in a courtroom while being arraigned, while her charges are being read. She had enough gall to stand up there and giggle and smile. Wouldn't even give the judge a straight answer. What is it with some people these days? That's what I ask. I mean, I'm scratching my head not because it's itching, it's because this woman, I don't know, is she has she lost her mind? Was it there to begin with? Or was it simply a case of she just didn't care? We'll find out when I get an update on this case as well. But right now, like I said, add Bionca Ellis's name to the most hated parents list, and let's add a couple more. Let's add 2 more to that. We got parents of an infant found dead in the home appearing in court on drug charges. Instead of playing the video, I'll just break it down from the article here. Days after the body of 8-month-old Miya Rudd was found decomposing in her family's home, her parents and grandfather appeared in court to face new charges in connection with her death. Miya's parents, Tesla Tucker and Cage Rudd, joined Rudd's father, Ricky Smith, in an Ohio County courtroom on last Monday. All 3 entered not guilty pleas to a number of charges, including abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and failure to report a death. Before she was called up for her turn, Tesla Tucker could be seen crying quietly in the courtroom. After entering pleas of not guilty, all 3 defendants remained in the courtroom for a preliminary hearing on drug charges, which were filed before Miya's body was even found. Investigators began searching for Miya on June 6th after they were unable to find her during a welfare check at the family's home. At that point, both her parents and her grandfather were arrested on charges related to drugs found in the home and abandonment of a minor. Prosecutors dropped the charges of abandonment of a minor on last Monday, but the judge found probable cause for the drug charges to move forward. Dalton Melliott, the lead detective in the case, took the stand and testified to what was found inside the home when officers began their search for Miya. Melliott described bags of pills, a scale, plastic bags with presumed methamphetamine, and firearms as being out and within reach of children in the room that investigators believed to be for a child, which contained a bassinet and diapers. Officers noticed a bag of what appeared to be methamphetamine and Narcan, a drug used to treat opioid overdoses. All three defendants are due back in court on June 24th, which is tomorrow, for a preliminary hearing on the charges related to Miya's death. Tesla's parents Talitha and David Tucker, as well as Rudd's mother Billy Smith, were also arrested on unrelated warrants during the investigation into Miya's disappearance. I'm not going to take the time to put up a photo of the so-called parents and so-called grandparents involved in the case. In fact, they're not even the focus of this case. I want you all to take a look at that tiny little thing in the middle. That's Miya. That is the wee one, as most Irish and Scottish would say, whom the parents and grandparents neglected, abandoned. And remember, I just said a little while ago that I put Bionca Ellis on the worst parents list. You put the Rudd, Tucker, Smith clan in that same category. Why so? Because they all had one job. One job. They had that one job and they failed at it miserably. So, I hope all of them get what they have coming to them. I hope they all get what they have coming to them. If there is no death penalty in that area, I hope they are thrown into the deepest, darkest part of a prison that they can find. That is the closest thing to justice for Miya that she could get. And that's my opinion. Now, last week was Father's Day. There's some irony in this, in what I just said. Last week was Father's Day. Guess what? Justin Ross Harris is out of prison after 10 years. Let me take you briefly to Vinnie Politan.
Tonight, let's take a look at the big board. Who do we see? Do you recognize him? This is Ross Harris, the so-called hot car dad, had been convicted of murdering his son Cooper by leaving him purposely inside a hot car in Georgia. That murder conviction was overturned, but he'd also been convicted of sex charges related to an underage girl. Well, guess what? Guess who was released from prison on Father's Day? Ross Harris. Ross Harris is a free man tonight, freed on Father's Day. Almost exactly 10 years since the death of his son Cooper.
And Alanis Morissette would say at this point, and isn't it ironic don't you think? 10 years. He left his son in a hot car to die. Why? He did it because he literally wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He was serving prison time for a felony conviction, attempted sexual exploitation of a minor, which resulted in the 10-year prison sentence. Meanwhile, his son Cooper was sentenced to death by his own father by leaving him in a hot car. Now, think about this, guys. Every year, whether it's just before or right on Memorial Day, I take my time and I give my annual PSA. Parents, do not leave your children in a hot car during the summertime. Guess what? This is the very reason I do this every single year. We don't need you to become another Justin Ross Harris. Protect your children. Keep them out of hot cars. All right, let's check this out. Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake arrested for DWI. Police said he had trouble standing. We're going to break all that down right now.
Pop superstar Justin Timberlake is facing a DWI charge after he was arrested last night while driving in the Hamptons. Now, this is his mugshot just released. Timberlake was released from police custody after his arraignment in Sag Harbor this morning. The Associated Press reports he was charged with 1 count of driving while intoxicated. Now, according to the police report, the arresting officer observed Timberlake failing to stop at a stop sign and failing to keep to the right side of the road to maintain lanes. Now, Justin's eyes were reportedly bloodshot and glassy with a strong odor of alcohol coming from his breath. His speech was allegedly slow and he was unsteady. The officer concluded that Timberlake performed poorly on all standardized field sobriety tests. Now, the pop star is due back in court on July 26.
Reloaded, we'll be covering that whenever whatever he's charged, whatever he'll be charged with, and we'll see. Because right now it looks to me like they are going to show absolutely no special treatment, regardless of the fact that Timberlake is a celebrity, which, in my opinion, is a good thing. DWI, even the Justin Timberlakes of the world can get busted for it. All right, next up. All right. right, now we're talking about a plastic surgeon who was charged with killing his wife during cosmetic procedures. Dr. Benjamin Brown, charged with second-degree felony homicide, manslaughter by culpable negligence in the death of his wife, Hilly Ellington Brown. I'm gonna take you to the video via Court TV's YouTube page, and we're gonna get to digging on this case.
Another crazy story to share with you all. This one is trending this morning. So there's a plastic surgeon in Florida who's been charged with killing his wife while performing cosmetic procedures on her. Happened last November. Investigators say Hillary Brown was at her husband's office to get liposuction on her arms, some lip injections, and a procedure to strengthen her muscles. According to the criminal complaint, Dr. Benjamin Brown failed to properly document the medications that Hillary was taking, including Valium. The filing also indicates that Brown allowed Hillary to assist in her own muscle procedure by suturing her skin back together. Yeah, you're hearing me right. He let this happen, allegedly. And then her legs apparently started becoming restless and twitching. She eventually had a seizure, became unresponsive on the operating table. Took her husband, though, 20 minutes to call 911. There's so much to this case. The fact that she was doing her own IV prep. In addition to this, the suturing, all of that, he waits after she begins seizing. What is the most stunning part of this case? I mean, it took quite some time for law enforcement to charge him as well. Let's bring back in our power panel, see what they think about this. David Katz, let me start with you this time. Your thoughts, please.
Well, not having gone to medical school, I'm going to preface that with that little caveat. I'm guessing that first year or two, they don't discuss having your wife suture herself and prep her own IV. I mean, this is one of these cases that are just so bizarre. Even like when you're reading it, you just like, did this happen? The big thing against him is the time it took him to call 911. Now, you could argue, he's shocked. He realizes, okay, now I have a problem. My license, but if your wife is having a seizure and her life is at risk, and you take 20 minutes to pick up the phone, that's going a long way to convince the authorities that this may be more here than just simply a botched surgical procedure.
Great points, David. Holland Reed, let me go back to you, please. Your thoughts on this one.
So I'm going to go exactly what David said. This is your wife. This is your wife. And so now the sleuths of the internet are saying, okay, let's talk about insurance policies. Let's talk about all the other underlying things that maybe were going on in their marriage. They were only married for 16 months. All of these procedures, neglect, negligence, there's going to be a lot to uncover. And I absolutely believe there's more to the story than meets the eye right now.
Oh, I'm with you, Holland. I keep wondering, okay, what are the investigators doing this morning? Are they looking back at other procedures? Are they interviewing other patients for any reason? Ooh, as you said, Holland, this is his wife. Franz Borghardt, let's talk legally about this guy. So he's criminally charged now. Your thoughts as you take a look at the case. What is most stunning to you here?
Well, I think the big takeaway is if you're dating a plastic surgeon or married to one, maybe don't let them be the one doing the procedure. But bigger issue is intent. And that's going to be what this case hinges on. Did he have the intent to kill her, or was this just really big negligence? And those are two different crimes. Statutorily, they're two different crimes that have two different penalties. I agree. Waiting 20 minutes, depending on what he was doing in the 20 minutes. Was he trying to render CPR in the 20 minutes? Was he in the corner freaking out because his wife, albeit of only a short period, was having some issues? To me, intent. Is this going to be charged as a intent-based homicide, or is it going to be some kind of gross negligence crime, which will definitely carry a lesser penalty?
Yeah, great points, Franz. We shall see what this guy does.
We will get back. We will report it right here. Bethea'S Byte Reloaded as new information comes in. Special thanks to Julie Grant and her power panel for that report. Next up, Buster Murdaugh. That last name should be a little familiar to you. Buster Murdaugh, son of Alec Murdaugh. Well, Buster is planning on suing Netflix, Warner Brothers, and Netflix and Warner Brothers over Stephen Smith allegations regarding defamation. Let's take a look.
Done out of hate.
It was not immediately clear to investigators what caused Stephen's death.
There is no body trauma other than to the head area.
He had a dislocated right shoulder, and then all his eye socket was broke. The whole back of his head was crushed.
There is some scrapes and scratches on his left and right arm, on his knuckles, some across his face.
Later that morning, police found Stephen Smith's car about 3 miles away, parked on the side of the road.
The car was locked. He had his phone and his key in his pocket, but then he left his wallet. So if you're going to go get gas, why would you leave your wallet in the car?
The medical examiner ruled Stephen's death the result of a hit and run, a finding that shocked his mother and the investigators.
There was no damage anywhere. There was no debris in the road.
Does not appear to be, in my opinion, struck by a vehicle.
As police tried to determine what exactly had happened, Sandy Smith, the mother of Stephen and his twin sister Stephanie, claimed Buster Murdaugh's name kept coming up.
Some of his friends came over, him and Stephanie's friends, and they said, it was them Murdaugh boys that did this. We never thought that. But then it just kept coming over and over and over again.
Investigators never figured out how the rumors began, and Buster Murdaugh strongly denied any involvement, calling them baseless, and said his heart went out to Stephen's family. The investigation into Stephen's death stalled for 6 years, until June of 2021, when the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh thrust the case into the national spotlight. It was then that SLED reopened the investigation, and Stephen Smith's death was officially ruled a homicide.
So now we go to today's huge development, which is the lawsuits filed by Buster Murdaugh. Defamation. Take a look at who he is suing. Warner Brothers, Discovery Inc., Blackfin Inc. for producing Murdaugh Murders, The Deadly Dynasty. He's suing Warner Media, Campfire Studios for Low Country, The Murdaugh Dynasty. And Netflix, Cinemark, Michael DeWitt Jr., editor of the Hampton Guardian, and Gannett, the publisher of that the publication, for Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal. So what happens now? What impact will all this have? What is the latest from the Low Country? Let's bring in our special guest. First, you'll recognize him from another huge case here on Court TV, an attorney who specializes in defamation cases, represented Johnny Depp in his case against Amber Heard. Ben Chu is joining us. Also with us, the attorney representing Stephen Smith's family and the host of the very popular Cup of Justice podcast, Eric Bland, is with us. And the creator of the Murdaugh Family Murders Impact of Influence podcast. He's been covering the Murdaughs since the very beginning. Matt Harris is joining us. Great to see everyone tonight. Eric, I'll begin with you. What do you believe the impact of this will be, of Buster Murdaugh going after these folks for defamation, suing them for what he alleges how they've damaged him and his reputation related to the Stephen Smith case?
Well, I've often told you that just because you can bring a lawsuit doesn't mean you should. And I think there could be some unintended consequences by him bringing this lawsuit. One of those is, this is a civil case, so the discovery can be done and will be done by the opposing party. And they will defend this case vigorously, zealously. They will take depositions of everybody in Buster's life, his friends, his family, before they take Buster's deposition. Remember, Vinny, in a criminal case, the state turns over the evidence to you. But in this type of case, this will just be a welcoming event for all the defendants because it's going to create content The embers of the Murdaugh case were almost dying out, and this will breathe new oxygen into the Murdaugh matters. And you will see more documentaries come because of the civil discovery that's going to take place in this case. Remember, he's only answered 2 questions relative to Stephen Smith in connection with the Fox News documentary last September. He said, I didn't kill Stephen Smith and I didn't have a relationship with Stephen Smith. What was never asked of him was, do you have any information regarding Stephen Smith's death? And the discovery process for people who don't do it is very intrusive. It's proactive. His reputation is now at stake. And remember, he had to leave law school because of plagiarism allegations that he had cheated. So his reputation is at stake, and this is going to be a fertile ground for him to be deposed, for subpoenas to be sent out, for emails and text messages. Civil discovery is so personally intrusive, and I don't believe that at the end of the day that I think that this is going to be beneficial to him. I think it's going to be more beneficial to these defendants who are extremely well-heeled, have money to defend these lawsuits. They named Michael DeWitt to stay out of federal court. I think you're going to see some litigation over that he was named as a sham defendant, and in this case removed to federal court and not be in Hampton County. So it's breathed oxygen into the Murdaugh matters that I think we're dying.
Matt Harris, when you heard of this, were you shocked? Were you surprised?
Angle than Eric does. I think it's possible. We're going down this path of, well, he has all these secrets. Well, isn't it possible that he is confident that he has nothing to hide? Why are we going right to it's going to backfire? Why are we going to, like in Eric's tweet, he's like, oh, when did you ever have lunch with him? Did you ever get in his car with him? I'm like, is there an implication because he's gay, you shouldn't be hanging out with him? I don't know what that is about. I think maybe he is confident that he did nothing wrong and he was railroaded. Isn't it possible that's the angle, not the angle that Eric says with like, oh, all these secrets are going to come out that he has? Let's give the guy a break. The guy's been through some crap. Maybe he is very confident that he had nothing to do with the Stephen Smith case, and he's tired of hearing people drag his name through the mud.
Let me do this. I want to get
into. Say he had anything.
Go ahead, Eric.
Case. I didn't say he had anything to do with the case. I said he may have information, but I'm not the one, Matt, who put his name in 6 or 8 different spots all over the South Carolina Highway Patrol investigative file that was released in 2021. Those were his friends who put him in the bullseye.
I mean, you might know something I don't know, but I'm just saying one of the things you wrote in your tweet was, when did you have lunch with him? Did you ever have lunch with him? Did you ever in his car with him? I mean, who cares? I mean, you can't be friends with the dude? I mean, I don't understand the implication.
Let me do this. I want to get into some more specifics here for you, Ben Chu, about these allegations and get your take on how you think this may play out. Let's begin with the Murdaugh murder's deadly dynasty. The plaintiff is alluded to a number of times as the murderer of Stephen Smith. In Low Country, these are the allegations. In Low Country, the Murdaugh dynasty, the allegation is that the series publishes false statements that suggest the plaintiff murdered Stephen Smith by striking him with a baseball bat. A sequence in the show accuses the plaintiff of killing Stephen Smith because of his sexual identity and further insinuates that the plaintiff killed Stephen Smith in relation to a romantic relationship between the plaintiff and Smith. In Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal, the allegation is that it depicts a young man with red hair carrying a baseball bat. The plaintiff has red hair, and it is readily ascertainable that the creators were depicting the plaintiff as the murderer of Stephen Smith. The series publishes statements such as, everyone keeps coming up to me and saying it was the Murdaugh boys, and listening to these statements, it is pretty clear Stephen's death is intertwined with the Murdaughs. The series falsely contains statements that the plaintiff was engaged in a romantic relationship with Stephen Smith and that it was the plaintiff and maybe 2 other individuals who killed Stephen Smith. And one more. In Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal, DeWitt stated, we were hearing all of these rumors about a possible connection. There is some truth to it. We could not put the Murdaugh name in the story unless we wanted to face lawsuits. We said a prominent, well-known family was rumored to be involved. Everyone knew who we were talking about. All right, I gave you some stuff to think about here, Ben. What are your thoughts about suing Warner Brothers, Warner Media, Netflix, Gannett, these big companies down there in the Low Country for defamation?
Well, I agree that Buster is biting off. He's fighting some well-heeled clients, and he will have the burden of proof on all the elements of a defamation claim, which are extremely difficult to prove, especially when he may have to meet the very high standard of actual malice. One thing he doesn't have to worry about, however, is the fact that some of these defendants may not have explicitly mentioned his name. That doesn't really matter. This will be a defamation by implication. As you suggested, Vinny, everybody who watches knew who they were referring to. And just by depicting somebody with fiery red hair, you can see it's very clear to anybody familiar with the story that they're referring to him. So I don't think he's going to have to worry about that. But he will have the burden of proof, and he's going to have to basically prove the negative that he is not a murderer. This is also defamation per se because he's been accused of a heinous crime, so damages will be presumed. But he still has to meet every element other than damages. So it's going to be tough.
It's going to be a tough, I suppose, pretty long process that is just beginning, unless there's a settlement. It could always be a quick settlement. We've seen those also. Ben Chu, thank you so much for giving us your insight. It was amazing how we took our two biggest trials and brought them together in one segment tonight, Murdaugh and Johnny Depp all together. Eric and Matt are going to stay with us. When we come back, we are going to take you back to the scene and try to get a better understanding of what happened to Stephen Smith and who's responsible.
Wednesday.
The ultimate betrayals.
Back-to-back episodes of Accomplice to Murder.
The spell was broken when the handcuffs went click. Friends and family turning on each other.
What he was willing to do for $1 million.
But just who is the puppet?
She was a master manipulator.
And who's pulling the strings?
An Accomplice to Murder marathon. Starting Wednesday, noon, 11 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Somebody was there. It was more than one person that done this. And somebody knows. And they set him up on that road to make it look like a hit and run. I was so happy when they reopened the case. And that gave me hope, and he wasn't under the rock anymore. And with all this stuff going on, you know, he gets more attention now. But we really don't want the attention. We just want the answers.
And that's, when you look at, you know, the whole saga with the Murdaugh family murders, it was because of that spotlight that finally this case got the attention that it deserved. Let's bring back in our guests, Eric Bland, the attorney representing Sandy Smith, and Matt Harris, host of the Murdaugh podcast, Impact of Influence. Eric, where are we right now in terms of this investigation and getting the answer for Sandy Smith?
I have frequent conversations with Chief Mark Keel, who's the head of our SLED, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division in our state. And I get some information, but obviously he doesn't share the status of the investigation. But I feel like that they're kind of at a standstill. There's, I'm told, 6 people that have relevant information, but you can't make people talk. They can be brought before a grand jury, they can be immunized, but if somebody doesn't want to talk, they don't have to. And what some people who are not lawyers don't understand is the civil process of discovery is so broad. It's not you can only discover relevant evidence. You have to discover evidence that ultimately could lead to admissible evidence. And so one of the things is that there was a discovery during the Murdaugh murders investigation in July of 2021, which caused SLED to reopen the investigation into Stephen's case. What was that information? What was that evidence? We don't know. Was it a connection to the Murdaughs? We don't know. But it was something strong enough that Chief Keel told me that the SLED now believes that he was not killed by a hit and run, but it actually was a homicide. Now, a homicide doesn't mean a murder, but it does mean something that it could have been a killing where somebody was grossly negligent, then they fled the scene. The problem with this discovery, and Matt and I have a disagreement on this, is it's going to go deep into the Murdaugh family, whether it's a relationship that Buster had with Stephen that was a friendly relationship. That is certainly fine. But does Alex have information regarding Stephen's murder? There's allegations that Alex showed up at the scene the next morning. There's allegations that Alex's brother Randy showed up at the accident scene.
Do you think they could be deposed as well?
The day after with her? Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no fence posts when it comes to this type of discovery. Yes. I mean, you can't go on a major fishing major fishing type of thing, but you can broad-based discovery. The court, if you can imagine, it's a funnel. And what happens is you get all the discovery that you do during the discovery phase, and then it funnels down to what's ultimately admissible. And it's much broader than what takes place in a criminal case. And the unintended consequences that I talked about is maybe it's not going to come back and have blowback against Buster, but it could have blowback against others because they're going to take depositions days on end. Remember, there's 9 defendants, Vinny and Matt, that each have the right to depose each individual and ask questions. So Buster is going to have to answer a lot of questions about his reputation, law school, different things, his underage drinking, the underage drinking that may have been done on the property, the fact that he gave his card to Paul. All these different things goes into the cake mix of his reputation. And I'm not sure he really, if I was his lawyer, I'm not sure I would have advised him to do this. I do know that this case has been talked about for a couple of years of being brought. I do know that he was shopping around several lawyers, prominent lawyers, and he got a good lawyer. Sean Kent, no question, is a reputable lawyer. But these kind of cases do have a chance of spinning out of control, and that's what could happen here. And it is definitely going to revive the whole Murdaugh matters to the delight of all these defendants who, by the way, Vinny, have more money than God to defend these type of cases.
Matt, do you think we're ever going to get the answer as to what happened to Stephen Smith and who's responsible?
First of all, EB's been great at keeping this story alive and working to try to get to put the pressure on to get the answer. Dude, that's awesome that he's been doing that. I still think that people will talk. I think eventually, and maybe when you say there's blowback or whatever, it might be positive blowback in the sense that somebody in a deposition says something that leads to finding out what happened to Stephen Smith. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a negative blowback to Buster. And I still believe that the answer will come to fruition. The sunlight will hit it eventually, with people staying on top of this. And again, the depositions, maybe they'll hurt somebody else, but if Buster truly believes that he had nothing to do with it, and he feels like he's being wronged, you can't hide when you're a big guy with the name Murdaugh and red hair, right?
And the other part of the big pockets is the people he's suing have big pockets. So we'll see how it all plays out. Eric and Matt are staying with us. When we come back, we will return to the scene.
And by doing that Freedom of Information Act, I have copies of like the whole investigation, the autopsy, and then I read it and it made no sense. And then I got the photos and I seen how badly he was beaten. That's not a car.
Stephen Smith's mother looking for an answer as to what happened to her son. Now, former Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, along with forensics expert Dr. Kenny Kinsey, take us back right now to the scene of Stephen's death.
I know that you've also read the file. Now that we're here on location, what's standing out to you?
Ms. Chanley, I noticed some features in the landscape that have remained constant in the last 7 or 8 years. A lot has changed, the dynamics of the highway, the pavement, some of the paint, but I can also isolate several features that helps me put the location down to a pinpoint. Maybe not a point of origin, but at least an area of origin where Mr. Smith's body was located.
And that's key to kind of understand maybe what happened, you know, how his body was positioned at the time that those first responders arrived here at the scene, right?
It is. See that one point right here?
Right.
And then the box extends over the actual line. So head this direction, feet that direction.
Feet that direction.
Yes, ma'am.
Right here, literally on the center line, it looks like.
Yeah, he did straddle the center line. I don't know the exact position because I haven't seen the exact photos, but right. Somewhere in this area.
What does the position here in the middle on the center line tell you?
Well, Ms. Chanley, it's so many different ways, and I don't want to. I don't want to state a method because I really don't know that part. It does look a little odd to me, the lack of damage to Mr. Smith's clothing. I mean, I'm not a trooper. I haven't ever been a trooper, but I have assisted on a number of pedestrian versus vehicle accidents, and I don't know that I've ever seen clothing in that pristine a condition from a vehicle versus pedestrian accident. And the positioning on the middle line, I mean, at bare minimum, I don't think a person could mistakenly hit someone and not know they hit someone.
There is a lot of, you can see kind of far down in this direction that there's a slight curve here in the road. Does that indicate anything or would affect anything?
There is, but in the original photographs and right now, they keep the shoulder cut back. So you still got plenty of field of view. You may not get it in the highway, you know, from a distance, but you should still see something moving. And those headlights are going to light it up for several hundred feet.
The lack of physical evidence here at the scene, talk to me about that.
Well, typically, Ms. Chanley, you're going to have car parts, plastic, glass. You know, those lenses, they don't hold up to a lot of impact. And the ones that I have worked that were intentional, and also the ones I've assisted Highway Patrol with, I believe there's always been debris.
Right, like
to the point.
You would see something, this is not obviously from a car, but just maybe the bumper or paint.
Oh, exactly.
Glass. There's no evidence really of swerving, right, from what you see in those photos?
In none of the photos I've seen, Chanley, when you slam on brakes, you're going to leave tire material on the pavement. It's going to show definitely the tire span, the width of that vehicle. Sometimes if you stop fast enough, it's going to leave a direct impression in that rubber. If you can find that at a crime scene, right, and you can find a suspect tire, a lot of times you can use those characteristics to include or exclude that tire.
None of that's here on this scene.
And it's probably changed in 8 years. If that vehicle is still around, of course, we change our shoes. Well, you have to change your car tires too. So it may be knowledge, some person's knowledge that they have to depend on. Maybe they'll look at it with another lens from a different direction. Let me look at it as this, and if it was actual car versus pedestrian, let's work till we get to that answer instead of maybe starting with that answer. The key here is someone knows. Someone knows, because people can't be quiet, and somebody knows and they're scared to come forward for whatever reason. But somebody knows, and the Smith family deserves answers.
So true. I mean, nothing ever really screamed out to me, you know, hit and run here. First of all, notice Chanley and Dr. Kinsey are doing this in the middle of the road and there's no cars coming by. We're in rural South Carolina. All right, let's bring back in our guests. Smith family attorney Eric Bland and podcaster Matt Harris still with me. And joining us now from Columbia, South Carolina, former medical examiner, retired forensic pathologist Dr. Michelle Dupree is with us. Great to see you, Dr. Dupree. So we now know that this was intentional, according to investigators. It's a homicide, right? That's what they're saying. It wasn't an accident. The body was exhumed. You played a large role in all of this. What are your thoughts tonight as we're still sitting here? Now we're talking about the case again because of these lawsuits, but still waiting for an answer.
Well, Vinny, actually, I'm afraid I have a little bit different opinion. I do think that the medical, scientific, and forensic evidence, to me, in my mind, really isn't there to make this into an intentional homicide. I really think that this was a horrible, tragic accident. I think that something on a vehicle, not the vehicle itself, but perhaps a ladder, a hook, I don't know, a large side view mirror or something struck Stephen. I believe that he actually passed away exactly where he was found. The medical evidence certainly suggests that. So I don't really think that this is an intentional homicide. I think that it became a crime when the person or persons in the vehicle did not stop and left the scene of that accident. And when they found out, perhaps later, they did not report it.
Let me ask you this, though. Like on that country road, right? You would hear or see, especially at night, it's so quiet, a vehicle coming. And he's walking and remains in the middle of the street. There's no tire tracks. There's no debris from the car. What are your thoughts about that part of it?
I think, and again, this is just, supposition on my part, but I believe that he was probably walking near the middle of the road because it was dark. I believe that he was out of gas. Perhaps he was going to try and flag down a vehicle that came, but the vehicle that I believe came was traveling at a very high rate of speed, and he didn't realize or have time to get out of the way, and the vehicle would have, I don't think even a stunt person, I don't believe, could have maneuvered the vehicle so that something on it hit him rather than the vehicle itself. This is why we don't see any debris. There was nothing on the vehicle like the headlight or tail light or anything like that actually hit him, and that's why there is no debris there. But something else, perhaps like a ladder or hook, that is what I believe hit him and knocked him down.
So Matt Harris,
he had no other injuries.
Absolutely. You are in it and you observed it and you did the work. Matt, let me ask you, do you think, and again, we're trying to figure out, like, why wouldn't someone stop? Why would they continue? And the obvious answer is always, you could be young and you could be drinking and you're just going to get out of there, which tells me that people know, someone knows something, yet all these years, no one has said anything. Why is that?
Well, like you said, and I think that if it happened, that person who, let's say they were even alone, they're probably going to tell somebody. The odds of you keeping that to yourself the whole time are pretty slim. But the fact that that circle of who knows has remained so tight in a small town like that is truly amazing and horrible. But I think that it's not surprising that if these were young people, they'd be like, oh crap, my life is ruined. I've got to make this split decision not to tell. And then you don't tell one day, and you don't tell a week, and then you don't tell 2 weeks. Makes it harder to say 2 months later, because then people are like, what the heck, dude? Why didn't you, or Mrs., why didn't you tell? So it becomes further and further and further out from the incident that it's harder to come clean, because you know the ramifications and the whole world, and especially that community. You are an evil person, even though you may not be an evil person. You might be a person who made a mistake, but now you are totally a pariah.
So Eric, many times we've seen civil cases that lead to criminal charges in some way. You've been talking a lot about this discovery process. People will be compelled to talk now. Do you think that maybe the answer to who is responsible comes in some way, directly or indirectly, from this discovery process?
I do, and I think Matt may be onto something, which is this case could be beneficial to Buster, but the happiest person that this case was brought is Sandy Smith, because this is going to give her some answers that she may not otherwise have gotten, because people don't have to talk. In the civil cases, they are going to have to speak. And those 6 people, which SLED says do have information, are either going to have to speak or actually take the Fifth Amendment privilege in a deposition, which creates negative inferences. So Sandy Smith is the happiest person on earth that Buster filed this lawsuit, because it's over the death of her son. It could end up being a financial benefit to Buster Murdaugh, but it's going to definitely yield some information, more information than we have today. So from our standpoint, we're very satisfied that he brought this lawsuit, because the discovery process is so factually, intensively intrusive. It's a full body medical exam if you haven't been through it.
Dr. Michelle Dupree, do you think you'll be deposed?
I have no idea.
How much information do you have that you think could be informative to all the parties involved in this case?
I think quite a bit. I was the one who helped exhume the body. I was at the autopsy, attended every bit of that. So yes, I mean, I saw it firsthand.
Eric, I think she's going to be deposed. What do you think?
Oh, I agree.
I agree. So get ready.
I agree.
Great to see everyone tonight on the program. It's kind of like getting everyone back together. Hopefully the next time we do this, we have an answer for Sandy Smith. I think that's what everyone is hoping for. But great to see you, Eric Bland, Cup of Justice, Matt Harris, Impact of Influence, and Dr. Michelle Dupree, expert of experts. Thank you all so much.
So now the question becomes whether Buster Murdaugh actually has a case. We will definitely see when the next hearing comes up, and who will be deposed in this civil suit against both Netflix and Warner Brothers. We'll wait and see, and when it comes up, I will bring that directly to you here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Now, a man charged in the stabbing wanted to kill everyone inside the house. It's coming out of Plainfield Township in Michigan. Courts levied a $2 million cash-only bond against Ricardo Castillo last Monday afternoon, as disturbing details were revealed about the attack. The decision sending a clear message. This is as big as it gets. This case is as scary as it gets, says Kent County Judge Sarah Smolensky during court proceedings. It's as horrific as it gets, and it puts all of us in a fear zone like no other. Castillo is the suspect in last Saturday morning stabbing of an 11-year-old girl. Kent County Undersheriff Bryan Muir called him a monster. My job is a Marine Corps recruiter for the Marines, Castillo told Judge Smolensky on last Monday. Investigators note Castillo told them he broke into the home with the aim of killing everyone inside. Detectives say surveillance cameras captured Castillo entering the home and taking his shoes, socks, and pants off before grabbing a knife from the kitchen. The sheriff's office told the court he went upstairs expecting to attack people in their bedrooms. First few doors he found locked. The first unlocked door he found led to the master bedroom where the husband and wife were sleeping. Castillo told police he decided to quietly close the door and look for an easier target. Eventually, he found a room where the 11-year-old girl lay, part of a sleepover at the home. Castillo told investigators he planned to sexually assault the girl's body after killing her, taking off his underwear before attacking. That's the biggest thing. That's usually a little more difficult to show, is that intent, explained Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker. The girl's screams caused Castillo to stop the stabbing and awoke some of the other people in the home. Minutes later, a 911 caller from the home told dispatchers a man covered in blood had broken in around 3 a.m. and was being held at gunpoint. Deputies found Castillo still in the bedroom with a bloody knife next to him. The 11-year-old girl is expected to survive her injuries following surgery on her shoulder. Investigators say there's no connection between Castillo and the homeowners or the girl who was stabbed, adding to the shock of the situation. I think that's usually what people default, that this is something that always happens, says Becker. But it is rather rare when we do see it, and it's a horrible situation anytime it does happen. Castillo faces up to life in prison for assault with intent to murder, as well as other charges of first-degree home invasion, assault with intent to commit criminal sexual conduct, and carrying a weapon with unlawful intent, plus a charge of illegal entry for a separate incident in Rockford hours earlier. Castillo's next court date is scheduled for June 26th, followed by a preliminary hearing on July 3rd. Guys, Ricardo Castillo is in a lot of trouble that he knows what he's dealing with. I'll keep you updated on that case as well. Next up, a scare actor accused of stabbing and mutilating his best friend was due in court earlier last week, I should say. We're going to take you inside the courtroom where he is being brought up on those.
We're here today in the case of State of Georgia versus Brandon and Christopher Reisner. I understand Mr. Reisner has decided to enter a plea of guilty in this case. We'll get to more specifics in just a moment. Before we get started, there is a media here today which I have permitted under Rule 22 of the Uniform Superior Court Rules unless there's any objection to be heard. From the state?
No, from the state.
From the defense?
No, Judge.
All right. Well, that'll be fine. And could the defense counsel identify yourself, please?
Your Honor, I'm Jeff Heller. I represent Mr. Reisner.
And for the state?
Leah Mayo.
All right, very well. Mr. Heller, if you and Mr. Reisner would approach the lectern. Before we get started, this is a guilty plea to all counts in the indictment. Felony murder relating to events of the same date involving the commission of the offense of aggravated assault and the death of Eric Davis. Count 3, another count of felony murder based upon the offense of aggravated battery causing the death of Eric Davis. Count 4 is aggravated assault. with the intent to murder. Count 5 is aggravated assault with an offensive weapon. Count 6 is aggravated battery. Count 7 is concealing the death of another. Count 8 is abandonment of a dead body. Count 9, theft by taking, involving the property of Clinton Randall Davis, to wit a Toyota Prius. Count 10 is removal of body parts from the scene of death. Count 11 is tampering with evidence, and count 12 is obstruction of officer, a misdemeanor involving the obstruction or hindrance of Trace Bethune, an officer with the World Police Department. Will you please swear in Mr. Reisner?
If you raise your right hand, do you swear affirm that the answer and truth?
Guys, I apologize for the audio quality of the video, so I'm going to break this down from here. A haunted house scare actor is facing life in prison for maliciously killing a friend he'd known since high school, who stayed with him on his way to Alabama to visit his girlfriend. 23-year-old Brandon Christopher Reisner pleaded guilty to stabbing and disemboweling his longtime friend, 21-year-old Aaron William Davis, on or between November 11th and 12th, 2022. Davis and Reisner were close friends. They went to the same church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Cumming, Georgia. Davis and Reisner even picked the same college, though Reisner only attended BYU, Idaho for a semester in the fall of 2021. Davis graduated from the university with a degree in political science in July 2022. That's according to Deseret News. Months later, on November 11, 2022, Davis stayed overnight with Reisner on his way to Alabama to visit his girlfriend. When Davis didn't arrive at his destination, Davis's family contacted the police in Rome, Georgia. The following day, authorities discovered Davis's abandoned blue Toyota Prius in a ditch behind a levee at a local park, which led them to Reisner's home in Collinwood Road. At his June 20th plea hearing at Floyd County Courthouse, Assistant District Attorney Leah Mayo stated that some of the key facts from the case. She said Reisner had assaulted Davis with a blade-like object multiple times to the head, chest, torso, and extremities, causing disfigurement and ultimately Davis's death. Afterward, when attempting to hide the body, Mayo said Reisner lost a piece of the victim's small intestine, which was never recovered. Reisner removed the body of said person from one location off Collinwood Road to another off Tumlin Drive, where he buried said person in an unmarked grave, the criminal indictment says. Once the body was removed, the prosecutor said Reisner went to Walmart to purchase cleaning supplies to clean bloodstains from a mattress, carpet, and rug in the Collinwood home, as well as blood splatter from the ceiling of an upstairs bedroom. Reisner then attempted to submerge Davis's car into a creek behind the levee in Heritage Park, about 2.5 miles from the Collinwood home. That's according to the prosecution. Investigators later found Davis's body under 6 to 12 inches of dirt in a 6 to 8 foot hole left by a large uprooted tree, according to police reports. Court documents show the night before Davis was killed, he went to a bar with Reisner and became inebriated after consuming high blood alcohol content beers the defendant ordered for him. They returned to Reisner's house and Davis slept in the upstairs guest bedroom. In total, Reisner pled guilty to 12 charges, including malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, aggravated battery, concealing the death of another, abandonment of a dead body, and theft by taking as well as misdemeanor removal of body parts from the scene of a death, tampering with evidence, and obstruction of an officer. Reisner's attorney Jeffrey Heller requested 2 mental health evaluations, according to the Rome News Tribune. If he had pled not guilty, his trial would have begun on Monday, June 24th. Randy Davis, Aaron Davis's father, told 11 Alive that Reisner was very close to the Davis family. He's been as much a son to us as anyone. It's really like losing 2 kids at this point. It just felt like betrayal, Randy Davis said. Reisner had been pursuing an acting career and worked as a haunted house scare actor in Canton, Georgia, according to his social media pages. Before his arrest, he posted a video of himself singing and playing the guitar. A judge will determine whether Reisner will face life in prison with or without parole at his sentencing hearing on July 18th. Victim impact statements are expected to be heard at that time. I have to agree with Randy Davis. My mother would tell you. My mother would be the first one to tell you. Your friends, keep them close and keep your enemies closer, because the only way your enemies are going to get you is through your so-called friends. July 18th, I'll have the judge's decision as to how Brandon Christopher Reisner will be sentenced. Now, an update on the Corey Richards case. The prosecutors in that case are accusing the defense of manipulation and putting on a show. Prosecutors in Corey Richards' murder trial are firing back against accusations of depriving the high-profile defendant of her rights, saying that Richards' defense team is manipulating the system and putting on a show. Richards is facing multiple charges of murder, along with multiple financial crimes for allegedly poisoning her husband, Eric Richards, with a lethal dose of fentanyl in a cocktail in March 2022. After her husband's death, Corey published a children's book about grief for the young sons she shared with the victim. In May, Corey was assigned new attorneys after her lawyer, Sky Lazaro, abruptly filed a motion to withdraw in May. But prosecutors say the motion, which cited a mysterious, irreconcilable, and non-waivable situation, was filed just hours after Lazaro filed a separate motion asking for the prosecution to be disqualified from trying the case. Prosecutors say that timing amounted to a manipulative litigation tactic. Quote, in a series of filings, Richard's attorneys sought to poison this aggravated murder case by simultaneously removing every single lawyer. This is unconscionable, given the defendant's custody status. The attorney's delay in filing the motion months after the alleged events demonstrates that the motion is a manipulative litigation tactic that constitutes a standalone basis for dismissal. The alleged events include an incident at the Summit County Jail where Corey is being held pending her trial. In the motion to disqualify the prosecution, Lazaro claimed that jail staff and Brad Bloodworth tried to prevent her from taking papers from her client during a visit on March 26, 2024. Lazaro said in her motion that despite the papers being clearly marked as privileged communications between attorney and client, jail staff insisted on reading them and going through them. Prosecutors instead tell a different story, saying that officers were trying to do a cursory scan of the documents when Lazaro began yelling at them. I've conducted hundreds of document searches with attorneys throughout my career, one officer said in an affidavit reviewed by Court TV. I've never had an attorney get angry and react like Lazaro did, end quote. Her behavior was bizarre, prosecutors wrote in their motion. At the time it appeared Ms. Lazaro was simply putting on a show for her client. It now appears that a client performance is only part of the explanation. Corey's attorneys had also accused prosecutors of illegally accessing recorded jail calls between her and her attorneys. Prosecutors acknowledged that the calls were recorded, but noted that happened because the attorney refused to pre-register their number with the jail system. Despite the recordings, an independent tape team assigned to review the calls determined that no prosecutors accessed or listened to the calls. Corey and her new attorneys are due back in court for a scheduling conference on June 21st, which is past, and she will be heading back to court for a status hearing soon. This is a crazy case in and of itself. But we'll keep track of it. Well, just when I thought I'd be finished with Chad Daybell, right? Got a little bit of news for you. Judge Stephen Boyce recently issued an order to permanently seal 97 trial exhibits from the trial of Chad Daybell after the court received multiple requests from media members and authors looking to publish information about the case in their business ventures. Some of these individuals, according to the June 17th order, were expressly requesting autopsy photos published to the jury in the case. While the order acknowledges the public's right to case information, Judge Boyce explained in writing that the court must also balance this with the rights of the victims in the case. Notably, the court was particularly moved by several victim impact statements at sentencing, expressly criticizing individuals proclaiming to be media, who, in the course of this case, have disrupted the lives of the families of these victims in the past and now continue their efforts to sensationalize and capitalize on this case. It's explained in the order that upon final deposition, the 97 exhibits will be permanently sealed because they are classified as material, quote, the publication of which would be highly objectionable of a reasonable person under an Idaho court administrative rule. So, bottom line, excuse me one sec, okay. Bottom line, if I wanted any of those exhibits, I can't get them because the order is already set in stone. I can't get those. I couldn't get those exhibits if I tried hard. All right. Oh well, that's a loss for us in the true crime community, but a win. But that's a huge win for any and everybody else. Next up, a very disturbing case. Why do I say it's a very disturbing case? You listen to this. This is coming out of Miami Township, Ohio. Let me get my lamp up. There we go. Newly obtained body camera footage shows when two officers were injured while a woman pinned her mother against a wall with a car, killing her, and then reversed to flee the scene. Miami Township Police Chief Mike Mills said officers were dispatched to a home on last Saturday morning for a dispute between a mother and her adult daughter. Mills said 23-year-old Anna Millette used a car to pin her mother, 64-year-old Joyce Millette, against a garage wall. When officers arrived, they tried to break out the vehicle's windows to free the mother. The body camera footage begins as officers are yelling at Anna to stop the car, which has its horn blaring as they are yelling. The officers open the driver's side door, and Anna reverses the car at high speed, throwing one officer to the ground. The officers then run toward the car with their guns drawn before the video ends. Let's take a look. A nearby ring camera on a residence caught ambulances and emergency crews arriving at the scene. About 14 seconds into the video, Anna is captured speeding down the street as she fled the scene. Roughly 25 seconds later, a police squad car is pursuing the speeding vehicle. Let's get a look at that. Okay. Mills said the pursuit ended when Anna crashed on I-275 near Loveland. It's unclear how long the pursuit went on. The officers then had to use a taser against Anna before taking her into custody. The two officers who were struck by the vehicle had minor injuries, Mills said. Joyce Millette died due to her injuries. Anna is facing charges of murder and felonious assault. According to court records, she was on probation for a previous felonious assault charge from 2022. Court records show that she was originally charged with 2 counts of felonious assault, aggravated vehicular assault, and leaving the scene of an accident, but the other charges were dismissed. She also had a prior DUI charge from 2022 that was reduced to reckless driving. So, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what could have her mother done or not do to cause her daughter to get behind the wheel and pin her mother against the wall, against a garage wall, and killing her. I would love to get more details on that. And when I do, Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, you'll get it. In another Another crazy case. We have an arrest of a daughter's ex in a cold case murder of a mother in Maryland. The ex-boyfriend of a murder victim's daughter has been arrested in a 23-year-old cold case. 44-year-old Eugene Theodore Gilger was arrested by the U.S. Marshals Task Force in Washington, D.C. for the murder of Leslie Prier. Officers found Prier murdered inside her home on May 2, 2001, after she did not show up for work, according to the Montgomery County Department of Police. September 2022, blood evidence from the scene was submitted to a lab for analysis. On June 9th, DNA evidence belonging to Gligor, was collected and compared to a DNA collected from the crime scene. Investigators said analysis generated a positive match. Gligor is charged with first-degree murder and is awaiting extradition to Maryland. Prier's daughter, Lauren Prier, told WTTG-TV that Gligor was an ex-boyfriend from her teenage years. Lauren said she and Gligor grew up in the same neighborhood and dated when she was 15. Lauren also says she ran into Gligor last year in a restaurant, saying, "I've spoken to him. He didn't seem weird. And how could you look someone in the eye and know that you committed this crime and act like nothing happened? It's pretty unreal." Unreal indeed. Of course, I'll have to keep you posted when it comes to that particular case. We'll find out exactly all that Eugene Gligor will be charged with. All right, right now, as promised, we have a verdict. We went on a verdict watch in Nevada for the protective grandmother murder trial. We're going to take you right now to that verdict. This is Nevada versus Pamela Bordeaux, charged with the murder of her ex.
Okay. And has the jury reached a verdict? Yes. Would you give the verdict form to my marshal, please? Will the defendant and her attorney please stand? The clerk will now read the verdict out loud.
District Court, Clark County, Nevada, State of Nevada versus Pamela Bordeaux, case number C19340404-1, Department 2. The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Pamela Bordeaux, as follows. Count 1, murder with use of a deadly weapon, guilty of first-degree murder with a deadly weapon, dated this 20th day of June. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict as read? So say you one, so say you all. Yes.
Do either party desire to have the jury closed? Okay. The clerk will now record the verdict in the minutes of the court. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, as we explained during the jury selection process, there are actually two phases to this proceeding. There's a sentencing hearing as you come back on the first-degree murder portion. So at this point, we're going to take a break, take it ready for that portion, but it is going to start today. So I'm going to ask you guys to take an hour break. During this time, you're still not allowed to talk to anyone about the deliberation or anything until you've completed the final portion. We also do need to get the alternates back, so that's why we're an hour to get ready. So during this recess, you are admonished not to talk or converse amongst yourselves with everyone else that any subject at the trial, or read, watch, listen, and record for commentary on the trial of any person in this case by any medium of information, including documentation, newspaper, television, internet, and radio, or form or express any opinion on any subject at the trial for the case is submitted to you for sentencing. So
So we will have you guys back here at 12:25. Please rise for the jury.
And with that, we are hearing that this jury decided that Pam Bordeaux is guilty of first-degree murder with the use of a deadly weapon. No reaction from Pam Bordeaux in hearing this very, for her life, dissatisfactory decision from the jury. For the family of Sean Babbitt, surely justice for their relative in this shooting that she said was self-defense there inside of her home. She's now facing up to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And you heard there that the jury is actually going to be coming back for the sentencing hearing in about an hour. Let me bring in legal correspondent Kelly Craft is with us, trial attorney Miguel Custodio. Kelly, your reaction?
Well, I did think that they would probably come back with guilty the way this went down. I know a lot of people like to say, well, she was a police officer. She gets a lot of credit, automatic credibility. I don't know if that's still the case in this day and age. I think the way the state presented this case with that hook of child custody changing, the changes wanted by this defendant. If that wasn't there, I think that maybe this could have gone the other way, but when the prosecutor was able to tie that in there and say, after 156 visits, nothing happened during those 156 visits, and then all of a sudden, he wants more time with his son, and she doesn't want that, and so she kills him.
Miguel, no reaction from this defendant.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, to be honest, because maybe on the stand, you know, she seems collected, but once you hear that guilty verdict, I thought we were gonna get reaction, but she's not. And so it's very interesting, right? Because I really thought that this was gonna come down the way it did, right? And I think the motive, like Kelly was saying, is there. There's motive. When you have 10 shots, it's really hard to say that it was in self-defense. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. She's law enforcement. She has more experience than your normal person handling a gun. And so I think it went the way that everything was looking like it was gonna go.
2 hours and 41 minutes is all it took for this jury to make a decision, and they did not come back with the lesser includeds of second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, which would have carried sentences of up to 10 years if it was voluntary manslaughter, up to 25 years if it was second-degree murder, but she is now facing up to life in prison without the possibility of parole. We are going to squeeze in a break. That penalty phase in the Bordeaux case begins in an hour.
2 hours, 41 minutes, and a jury is found of retired Las Vegas detective guilty in the shooting death of her former son-in-law. They have rescheduled her sentencing hearing for August 20th, and as Julia Janae has mentioned, she is facing life in prison, up to life in prison. So, for the sake of the Babbitt family, we can say justice served. All right, next up. This one was the disturbing case that I wanted to bring to your attention. A Utah double murder suspect confessed to killing her parents. Now, before I go to Vinnie Politan, I want to read a good portion of this. The morning after a man and a woman were found shot to death in a Washington City home, their daughter was arrested on suspicion of murdering them. Just before 10:30 a.m. on last Tuesday, officials took the suspect, 28-year-old Miya Bailey, into custody in a St. George field. Surge came after Washington City police was alerted to a shooting around 7 p.m. Miya's brother called police from a neighbor's house, saying he fled his parents' house after hearing gunshots. When officers arrived at the home, they found 2 adults, a woman and a man, who had died from apparent gunshot wounds. According to an arrest report, the victims were Miya's parents, Joseph and Gail Bailey. Let's go to Big Politan for this edition of Something Else You Need to Know.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. And this is 28-year-old Miya Bailey, under arrest in custody, accused of the murder of her own parents. Here's a quote. She reportedly said she had no remorse for doing so, for shooting and killing her parents, and she would not change what she did, saying, "I would do it again. I hate them." She also shot but did not kill, or shot at but did not kill her brother, and she said she would not have been sad had the gunshot killed him. Take a listen to Lieutenant Corey Klotz from Washington City Police.
Miya complied with what we were asking, set the gun down, was able to get up and walk over to our officers that were able to take her into custody.
No remorse, an alleged confession. We will continue to cover this story for you right here on your front row seat to justice.
To cover it here at the drama-free true crime destination. We're going to move right ahead now, and we could end up saying, finally. We could end up saying, finally, a court date. Judge may soon set a trial for Bryan Kohberger for the Idaho student murders. Let's take a look at this through the lens of YouTube.
Now for what's tipping the scales of justice in the University of Idaho murders case. So right now we're 1 week away from an important hearing for Bryan Kohberger. At that hearing, a trial date could finally be set. Kohberger is the former grad student accused of stabbing to death those 4 University of Idaho students as they slept in their off-campus home.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger.
Never know. Like our neighbor was, a possible quadruple murderer.
Let's talk a little bit about this. Is justice getting closer for those 4 victims? They've been patiently waiting for a trial date on this one. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor and somebody who is no stranger to high-profile cases, Michael J. Brown. Okay, Michael, so I know you can understand this from both sides. You're the perfect person to talk to about this because, you've been a prosecutor. You know how anxious these victims' family members are to get to trial, get to the truth, see if Kohberger is the right guy. And then we've also got the defense side. This is a capital case. They're trying to protect him at all costs, to save his life. Tell me what you think the court ought to do here. I mean, this is going on a while here, this case. Do you think it's about time we get a trial date on the calendar?
Julie, there's no set, there's no rules in the sense of it has to be done by a certain time. Each case you have to take by a case-by-case basis. Each case is unique. Here you have 4 murders. You have a death penalty case. So I think the judge is trying to get this thing towards trial by setting the schedule and conferencing date. But things come up, and that's what happened. So, yes, I think they're getting to that point. But you have to remember, things can still happen, which would cause delays. But they're getting to that point because I know they want to set the schedule down.
Right. Michael, this is a tough one here because this case has just been so... it's heartbreaking. It's inflamed a lot of passions of people all around the world who've watched this, waited for justice. We heard the announcement from police that Kohberger's the guy, but we don't know if he's the guy. He's cloaked in the presumption of innocence. We'll see. What do you think may be the best defense for him? If you were tasked with representing him, I'm curious, where would you go? What would you do? What would you be looking at? How might you go about it differently than what we're seeing from this defense team?
Well, I think these defense attorneys are being zealous. I think they're definitely going after issues that they can attack. Kohberger has mentioned that he was, I think, stargazing, and he was out at a different location. The evidence may very well suggest otherwise. But I think they're going to, and what I would do is attack those issues in terms of the technical part of it. And listen, he may very well testify. I think he was a PhD candidate. He obviously is an intelligent person. I would expect he's well spoken. So you may very well see him testify. You know, when you have a case like this and there's so much evidence against you, you never know if you can save yourself, and that may very well be the case.
That's a really good point, Michael. You know, we talk about what could tip the scales. When you're on the defense side, all you need is one to potentially hang the jury. Yeah, that's not an outright acquittal, but it could be something to give the state pause. So that's a great point. Maybe we will see him testify. He sounds pretty articulate in the few clips we've heard. Obviously, he is an intelligent guy. Oh, and we've got to leave it there for now. We're about out of time, but we'll see what happens. 1 week from now, he's back in court. We'll see if we get that date on the calendar.
Yep, that's gonna wrap it. That's gonna hopefully we'll get an official trial start date in this case, because it is high time that Bryan Kohberger face his charges and likely face justice for the murders of those 4 students. Next up, a woman who tried to poison her husband with pet euthanasia has entered a plea. Oh my. Tried to poison her husband with pet euthanasia? Really? Let's go to the...
All right, Ms. Chapin, you had an opportunity to talk with your attorney. At this point, can you answer my question?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you
Yes,
would agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Ms. Souter, do you also agree that there is a factual basis?
Yes.
And Ms. Gill? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
All right, so I've also had an opportunity to review the criminal complaint in this matter, and I do believe it sets forth a basis upon which I could receive the plea. So to the amended charge of first-degree recklessly endangering safety, how do you plead, Ms. Chapin?
No contest, not guilty.
No, okay. Those are two different things. No contest basically means that what you're telling me is that the state could prove I am guilty, and I'm not going to fight their efforts to do that.
And Your Honor, I think my client out of an abundance of caution and wanting to answer her questions correctly, is maybe overthinking things a little bit. Do you understand the question, Amanda? She's asking what your plea is today.
No contest.
And Ms. Souter, is that her plea? Do you believe she's entering that plea today freely, voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently?
Yes, I am.
All right. So based upon this discussion, I will find that the defendant today is entering her plea freely, voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently. I find that she understands the constitutional rights that are waived by her plea and that she has freely, voluntarily, and knowingly waived those rights. I find from the record that a factual basis exists for that plea and that she has committed the crime as charged. I will accept her plea of no contest and find her guilty of the offense of first degree recklessly endangering safety. This matter will be then continued for sentencing, and we do have a date at this point. It's my understanding that bond will continue, so that, and just so you understand, Ms. Chapin, that is a privilege, not a right. So continue to follow your rules of bond at this point. And what's the date and time again that we've set for the sentencing, just so I know? July 25th at 1:30, if making sure that we can get the PSI done by that time. Any other questions?
Not from the state.
I was just going to put on the record our request for a PSI.
Okay, we'll have get the order for a PSI done at this point. Ms. Chapin, you'll be contacted by the Department of Corrections, and I think so they'll contact you in order to get that document done. You need to cooperate with them so that we can have as much information as possible. I can have as much information as possible prior to sentencing. All right? Okay, anything else then from the court at this time?
No, Judge.
From the defense, thank you.
All right, so I will remove the trial dates that we have scheduled for the last week of July. We have a date scheduled, and I will see you all then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. This matter is concluded.
You heard it loud and clear, ladies and gentlemen. Amanda Chapin is scheduled to face had been scheduled to face trial next month, but with a plea of no contest, she is going to have a sentencing hearing on July 25th, where she faces the maximum of 5 years in prison and 5 years extended supervision for trying to poison her husband with pet euthanasia. Man, I say it time and time again. If the person you're with, the person you supposedly love, don't love you anymore, get out of the relationship. Okay, moving onward. Update in the Alec Baldwin case. The judge has rejected the effort to compel testimony from the armorer in Baldwin's trial. So I guess we will not be hearing from Hannah Gutierrez. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to court.
And of course, we have new developments in the Baldwin movie shooting trial in New Mexico. Today, attorneys for both sides argued several motions, including one by the state to force weapons supervisor Hannah Gutierrez to testify in Alec Baldwin's upcoming involuntary manslaughter trial. Baldwin is accused in the fatal shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of his movie Rust back in October of 2021. Gutierrez is already serving an 18-month sentence after being convicted of that same charge last March. Well, now the state wants her to testify as a witness for the defense, actually for the state, so that prosecutors will have a chance to cross-examine her. Well, let's take a listen to arguments from both sides, beginning with the state.
The state is not seeking information from Ms. Gutierrez about her criminal conduct. The state is seeking information from Ms. Gutierrez about the criminal conduct of Mr. Baldwin. The court can see from the transcript of the interview, at one point, Ms. Gutierrez just asserted her Fifth Amendment privilege without the assistant attorney. And when I mentioned to Mr. Bowles, I said, you're not really advising her to assert her fifth. She's just doing it on her own. And he said, well, I think she can do that. So we have Ms. Gutierrez, who doesn't understand the circumstances in which she gets to assert her Fifth Amendment privilege, just asserting it, and her attorney not counseling her on that. So the bottom line is, it took a long time to schedule the pretrial interview. That's the fault of Mr. Baldwin's counsel and Ms. Gutierrez's counsel, not ours. They listed her, I believe, initially on April 19th. We requested her pretrial interview on April 21st. We didn't create any delay at all. Her interview was scheduled, and Mr. Bowles did exactly what Mr. Baldwin's counsel wanted him to do, which was just have her assert the fifth to everything, because they don't want her to testify. She is listed on their witness list, and they presented her for a pretrial interview, but they don't want her to testify. They want to get her statements in as exceptions to hearsay.
The assertion of privilege was on behalf of Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, who wanted to assert her privilege. It wasn't on behalf of anybody else. She has a currently pending appeal, as this court knows, so she has a conviction that is not yet finalized, and the cases are very clear. She can invoke a privilege as to questions that may tend to incriminate her. I agree with the state. She cannot invoke as to all questions if those do not have a tendency to incriminate her. However, when Ms. Gutierrez-Reed invoked it on her own at the interview, Ms. Morrissey also said in the transcript, and she left that out in the interview, I think she can invoke that. So that's what happened there. On May 14th, we got the indication from Ms. Morrissey that she wanted to file a motion to force use immunity, which under Rule 5-116, this court unquestionably has that authority and discretion to do that. Now, Your Honor, in a normal case, and the cases cited in that rule, Bellinger and some others, this court can force use and derivative use immunity, which I do not believe should be selective, as the state indicates, because the problem we get in there is that on cross-examination, questions may be asked, then Ms. Gutierrez-Reed may have to invoke in the middle of trial. If that were to happen, her testimony could be stricken. So I think if this court were to order use and derivative use immunity, it would have to be blanket as to the trial testimony and cross-examination, I would submit, to avoid those issues.
All right, after listening to all sides of the issue, the judge ruled against the state.
The state denies the state's amended opposed expedited motion for use immunity for Hannah Gutierrez. It's pretty clear that she does not intend to cooperate. The court may grant use immunity pursuant to Rule 5116 if the court finds the testimony may be necessary to the public interest and the person has refused or is likely to refuse to testify. So it's really the public interest portion that I'm going to address because she has indicated that she won't testify. You've indicated that she possesses information about what she already told the investigators. I don't think that there is anything that, I mean, I haven't heard of anything that she might testify to that someone else could not testify to, even about her observations. Maybe, I mean, maybe the only thing is, the only portion is that talking about how Mr. Baldwin didn't, didn't want to be trained, things like that, which she could probably answer without the use immunity. But, the state says, well, the simple solution after she refuses to answer, even though she's been given immunity, is that you can hold her in contempt. I'm not going to do a mini trial within a trial. And I think that when all is said and done, if she's going to be an unavailable witness, then we're at the 11804 evidence rule on unavailable witnesses. So I think you should prepare accordingly.
And there you have that. Hannah Gutierrez will not be subjected to testimony in Alec Baldwin's trial. The New Mexico judge denied a request on last Friday to use immunity to compel testimony from Gutierrez in an involuntary manslaughter trial of Alec Baldwin, who fatally shot cinematographer during rehearsal for the Western movie Rust. And we'll keep track of it. We'll keep track of this case as Alec Baldwin goes to trial. And if convicted, he could very well see the same 18-month sentence as Hannah Gutierrez. Our final story of the week: a partial settlement for a widower of a bride killed by an alleged drunk driver. The widower of a bride killed on her wedding night by an alleged drunk driver will receive more than $1 million in a partial settlement from several businesses. Samantha Miller and Eric Hutchinson had gotten married just hours beforehand on April 28, 2023, when a vehicle driven by Jamie Lynn Komorowski allegedly slammed into them, killing Miller and injuring Hutchinson and others. Komorowski, who was driving a rental car at the time of the crash, was allegedly on a booze-filled day of bar hopping before the deadly crash. Less than a month after the crash, Hutchinson and the others who were on the golf court filed a lawsuit against Komorowski, the rental car company, and the businesses they said served Komorowski alcohol before she got behind the wheel. In the lawsuit, the plaintiffs claimed despite being noticeably and visibly intoxicated at each of these establishments, Jamie Komorowski continued to be served, provided, and or allowed to consume additional and excessive amounts of alcohol at each of them. On June 19th, a South Carolina judge approved a partial settlement in the lawsuit. The settlement addresses only one count of the original lawsuit, namely the wrongful death of Samantha Miller, was reached with three businesses: an insurance company, and Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Court TV reviewed the settlement, which breaks down the amount each defendant will pay Hutchinson, who is acting as the representative of his late wife's estate. Oh, hold on. The Crab Shack will pay $640,000. Drop-In Bar and Deli will pay $320,000. Snapper Jacks, $320,000. Progressive Northern Insurance, $75,000. And Enterprise Rent-A-Car, $24,000. The settlement specifies that Hutchinson's attorneys are entitled to 1/3 of the settlement as their cost, as well as $51,001.83 in reimbursable costs. Court TV reached out to Hutchinson's attorneys for more information regarding the status of the rest of the lawsuit, which alleges grossly negligent, and or reckless hiring, supervision, and training at the restaurants, as well as negligent infliction of emotional distress. Komorowski is facing criminal charges, including felony DUI and reckless homicide. He was released on bond in March, and no trial date has been set. So, civilly, this one is not over yet. Criminally, this one hasn't even begun yet. So we'll keep track of this, and when I get the information, as always, you will too. All right, it's time to wrap things up. I already started with a statement from Julie regarding regarding Rachel Morin's investigators and how they deserve a round of applause for getting the arrest of Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. Now, I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. Her next statement lets her go off on one Leilani Simon for complaining about her jailhouse conditions. Being like, for example, oh, she can't eat at a certain time, therefore she has to miss out, etc., etc. Leilani, have you thought about your son? That's something you need to think about, Leilani, because
Cry me a river. Leilani Simon reportedly telling the New York Post that she doesn't like the conditions in jail. Well, there's a big surprise. Newsflash, Leilani, it's not meant to be enjoyable. It's jail. Leilani Simon is, of course, the Georgia mother who's accused of murdering her 20-month-old son, Quinton. Police say that Simon also dumped little Quinton's body in a landfill to cover it all up. Now, as Simon is awaiting her homicide trial, she's being held in protective custody. And she told the New York Post that she's upset about her living conditions. The Post is reporting that Simon is angry that the jail took away her colored pencils. What is she, 7? Simon also told the New York Post she goes to bed hungry because the jail feeds her dinner too early. You know, some people who aren't facing any murder charges never get any dinner at all. Isn't adequate nourishment something to be grateful for just in general? I mean, again, this is jail. It's not the Ritz-Carlton with a lavish room service menu and late-night snacking. The New York Post also reported that Leilani Simon told them that she's upset that the only way she can pass the time in her cell are by either reading or using a tablet. Again, isn't it a privilege to be literate? And would it hurt her to learn something? I'm going to share with you one of my famous quotes, like my favorite quotes rather, like the famous founder of Faber College famously said in the movie Animal House, knowledge is good. Knowledge is good. That's one of my favorites. You know, as you can see, my friends, I have zero sympathy for Leilani Simon. None. I think instead of worrying about what she's going to color with, she should worry about her baby being dead. Little Quinton Simon, that precious, defenseless, darling little human, was found discarded with garbage. He was among garbage. Somebody put him there. And now his entitled mother is worried about being entertained and eating closer to bedtime. She makes me sick. What a nauseating, selfish, privileged, rotten defendant she sounds like to me. I can't wait until her case goes to trial. And if I were her, I would try to get used to life behind bars because I don't think she will ever get out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give Julie Grant a round of applause for saying exactly what a number of people are thinking right now, including yours truly. I mean, for real, guys. Leilani Simon complaining about her conditions in jail. In jail. I mean, Julie said the Ritz-Carlton. I'm going to say, what do you think this is? The Waldorf Astoria in New York City? Then on top of that, oh, they took my colored pencils. Ah. I like Julie's answer to that one. What are you, 7? Shoot. If I were behind bars on these same charges, anytime I get to eat, it's a blessing. Because I got a lot bigger fish to fry. Namely, I'm getting ready to stand trial for my son's murder. And misintitled Leilani Simon is complaining about taking away her colored pencils, not eating at a time she wants to eat. Give me a break. Or like Julie said, cry me a river. Wednesday, Julie said that every suspicious death is not a homicide. Case in point, mysterious death of Riley Strain. Let's go back to Julie as she gives profound condolences to the family of Riley Strain.
Not every suspicious death is a homicide, but every death hurts like heck for the family of the person gone. This morning, I want to just take a moment to express my heartfelt condolences to the family of Riley Strain. Even though this case isn't going into the criminal justice system like many people suspected it might, it is still extremely difficult and upsetting for the family to come to terms with what really happened to their Riley. I pray that they find comfort and peace in the partial closure that they've received in terms of the medical and the toxicology findings. The medical examiner found that Riley died by way of an accidental drowning and that he was highly intoxicated at the time that he died. His blood alcohol level was nearly 3 times the legal limit. Detectives concluded that Riley Strain was unfamiliar with the terrain in that area leading to the Cumberland River and fell down the embankment into the water. This is just awful. It is an awful, awful accident that everybody wishes wouldn't have happened. My heart goes out to everyone who loved Riley Strain. He had a very promising future ahead of him. And a testament to how loved he was, the incredible number of people who were so concerned for his well-being when he vanished back on March 8th. So with the conclusion of the investigation, let's continue keeping the Strain family in our hearts and in our prayers as they come to terms with the way that their son died. It may not be a quest for justice. Instead, it's more of a quest for healing now. But both of these endeavors are equally difficult.
Absolutely. And to the family of Riley Strain, my deepest condolences go to you all as well. If anything, let's do all we can to keep Riley's memory alive. We may not have to go on this quest for justice like Julie mentioned, but we can do all we can to preserve Riley's memory. Now, earlier I mentioned about Corey Richards' defense team possibly drumming up drama as part of their defense strategy. Could it pay off, or could it backfire? Let's go back. Let's see what the professor, Julie Grant, thinks about that.
Drumming up drama? Prosecutors are accusing Corey Richards of drumming up drama ahead of her homicide trial for the death of her husband, Eric. They say that she's manipulating the legal system and putting on a show. My friends, I don't find that hard to believe at all. Do you? You know, we were supposed to be watching Richards' preliminary hearing together today, but it's been continued because her previous attorney withdrew from the case, but not before she filed a motion trying to disqualify the prosecutors from the case. So the former defense attorney accused the prosecutors of improperly hearing privileged calls between her and Ms. Richards from the jail. Now, right now, Richards has a brand new lawyer who needs to get all caught up on the case, so the court date of the prelim has been continued, and Friday will be a status conference. Now, I've got to tell you, what is really juicy is the prosecution's scathing response to the two motions that were filed just hours apart, by the way, by Richards' former attorney. Right before the defense attorney went to go do an exclusive media interview, she filed the motion to try to kick the prosecutors off the case, and she filed the motion to withdraw altogether, just hours apart. Okay, now to boil this down, because it's a lot, I read through the state's response, but state's basically saying that the complaints that Richards and her previous lawyer made are false and conjured up, created to try to make up a false narrative that the state attorneys and the jail staff are somehow in cahoots together to try to intrude on the attorney-client relationship and their privileged communications. That's the gist of it. The state is saying this is nothing more than a manipulation tactic by Corey Richards and previous counsel, and it has no merit. So I was reading this, my friends. I have to tell you, I have a theory. It's just my theory, and I could be wrong, but I think these defense allegations are payback for prosecutors discovering Corey's infamous walk the dog letter. Remember that? Remember in it, she told her mom to have her brother lie in court and say that her deceased husband, Eric, got the drugs from Mexico all by himself? Yeah, I remember that. She was mad that they got their hands on that letter. I say pants on fire once again, Corey Richards. Now crying foul yet again about prosecutors listening to privileged communications. I am not buying it. I say, how about let's try the case? Isn't it about time the case moves forward? Eric Richards deserves justice. He deserved to live. His boys deserved to have their dad. This case is heartbreaking and the allegations are despicable. May Eric Richards' family find some bit of comfort in knowing that these prosecutors are working diligently every day to get justice for their loved one. And it may take a little longer than anticipated, but I'm confident it will happen. That's
and basically what Julie is saying, I'm totally agreeing on it. What is she saying? Stop playing around. Let's get this thing over with, and let's find out whether Corey Richards is guilty or not in the death of her husband. And speaking of playing around, we have there's an attorney in the Karen Reed case. He's not playing around. You talk about a case. If you're a baseball fan like I am, and I know Julie is one, it may seem like a case of ball and strikes, but this one attorney hit a home run on last Thursday. So give me 1 second to set up, and Julie's going to talk about it.
The truth always comes out in the wash. Slowly but surely, the pieces of disinformation are being proven untrue in the case against defendant Karen Reed. Prosecuting attorney Adam Lally not only has the job of carrying the legal burden of proof, but he's also been saddled with an extra burden, in my opinion. He has to disprove all the pieces of disinformation put into the court of public opinion by Karen Reed, her defense team, and people who have closely aligned themselves with her. For instance, got a couple examples for you. The Google search of how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. That never happened. Jennifer McCabe was vindicated by multiple experts. She searched it when the defendant told her to search it at 6:23 a.m. Got another example. The disinformation that John O'Keefe encountered teenager Colin Albert at 34 Fairview and beat him up. Nope, that's also untrue. Video evidence and cell phone evidence proves the two of them never crossed paths. Colin Albert, add him to the vindicated list. And the biggest piece of disinformation, in my opinion, was that John O'Keefe went inside of the home at 34 Fairview Road. Nope, also untrue. The evidence proves he sadly never made it inside. And this fact destroys the defense theory that he was attacked by his friends in the basement and then dumped outside. Nope, always outside, dying where he was dropped off by Karen Reed. You know, I've been critical of Adam Lally for ineffective storytelling, messy questioning, confusing ordering of witnesses, lack of preparation, among other things. But I have to hand it to him. This is not an easy case to try. In my opinion, it's a very simple set of facts that has been ridiculously complicated by a salacious story. The story of an alleged cover-up is what people are wondering about who are new and just hearing about the case. It's what initially made me stop and want to learn about the case in the first place. Then I did my homework, and I've watched this trial. And now, after seeing all the Commonwealth's evidence, I understand exactly how Officer John O'Keefe was murdered. The only question I have now is whether Karen Reed's Lexus and vicious voicemails are in on the cover-up against her too. Adam Lally has fought an excellent, noble fight and has shown the jury solid evidentiary proof that Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe by hitting him with her SUV in a drunken fit of rage. In closing arguments, I bet Adam Lally asked the jury to think about who's engaging in the real cover-up.
And that is how we wrap up the week. And I think if we take Julie's last statement regarding Adam Lally and the way he handled that, it would sound a little something like this. Only thing it would be a lot more deeper than that. Anyway, if Adam Lally keeps this up, I smell a conviction for one Karen Reed. That's good. That's the way it went down this week, ladies and gentlemen. First off, I want to thank everybody for your time, for your energy, your patience, and if you want to follow me back on social media, I'm not a hard person to find. Catch me right up on YouTube starting on Facebook at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. On X, formerly known as Twitter, EKB316 is the handle, all caps. Here on YouTube at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Instagram at EKB316, all lowercase this time around. On TikTok, where I will have a link to this edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded posted in my bio. Catch me at King of Hearts 316 2021, and you can always email me at kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. And if you want to financially contribute to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, I would appreciate anything you can send. You can hit me up on PayPal, EKB316, Cash App, $ EKB316, or Venmo, EB The Last Outlaw. Like my good friend Brittany J would say, nothing is obligated, but it's always appreciated. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and take this home, but before I do that, I want to let you guys know I will not be going live next weekend. Why not, Outlaw? Next weekend is my 5th wedding anniversary to the Lady Outlaw. Aww. Yeah. We celebrate 5 years of wedded bliss together, and I'm gonna give myself a bit of a break. So what I'm gonna do is this: all the stories that's going to be covered for this week, they will be posted on the community tab on YouTube, and I can also have it. You can also share it throughout your social media as well. And I'll be keeping a lookout for any missing persons posters as well. Now I'll share that as well. But this coming weekend, this one is for me and my honey. All right. So in 2 weeks, I'll be back. For now, you know what this is. A home for true crime news without the drama, where your opinions matter, lively debates are encouraged, your voice is heard, and above all else, justice is served. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's Reloaded. I'm Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw, and I thank you all so much for joining me this week. This is a shorter edition than normal, but hey, it's been a good one. Let's do this again next week. No, not next week. In 2 weeks. Until we get back together again, you all know what to do. Byte this. Thanks for watching and joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and drop me a comment on this video. And be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's Reloaded.